Welcome back, everyone, from the fall break, if you will. It's the 5 Sports Show. I'm Atticus Pead, welcoming you in here as we get off that bye week, and now we're back in as West Virginia gets ready to go in Week 8, resuming the season on the road against Central Florida. I'll be the only one joining you here today. Cam Murray and Zach Anderson are out covering our high school sports. They'll have more on our social media pages from the high school golf tournament. For now, though, here's what I want to talk about here today with you. We're going to preview the UCF game, where things stand. Rich Rodriguez spoke to the media, his radio show this week, and to the media yesterday on Tuesday. We're filming this Wednesday night. A couple days to go before West Virginia heads out there into Orlando, see if they can beat the Knights. So, first things first on the agenda here, who plays at quarterback? As we saw in the BYU game a couple of weeks ago now, West Virginia's Khalil Wilkins, the redshirt freshman, is the one who took the reins there for the Mountaineers. Had a decent game, did a good job running the ball. Plenty of yards there, really the only offensive threat when it came to rushing, but not as good in the air. So he's had a couple weeks since then. Can he improve going into this next week? And then Scotty Fox is really your option too. Scotty Fox came in at the end of that game. He threw a nice touchdown pass towards the end of this one for West Virginia. But West Virginia really wasn't all that competitive. Score looked closer than it was, 38-24, as they lost by 14 on the road here in Provo. You see Wilkins' pass here. If you're looking at the screen, that was his first pass and a quick pick as BYU took it the other way, went up from there, and never really came back down from that point. So, where do we go this week? Where do we go at quarterback? Rich Rodriguez says he's working with everybody, willing to go through anyone, but as we get into the second half of the season, Coach Rodriguez calls it a restart. And he was asked, who's going to play at quarterback this week? What do they have to do to establish themselves in his mind? Rodriguez says, it's not that complicated. At the end of the day, if there's a play call that's not as good, quarterbacks can rescue you out of it or at least minimize the damage a bit too. That comes with experience, but we don't have the benefit of that happening. So they, referring to Khalil Wilkins and Scotty Fox, they've got to grow up in a hurry. That, I think, is really what we're going to test and see this week. We've seen the first 6 weeks of the season. West Virginia's run the ball a lot, and they've run the ball decently well. They're in the upper third, the upper echelon of teams in the country who can run the ball, if you will. A lot of that feels like volume rather than just effective running. As you see here against BYU, they did a good job on defense sort of helping get back in the game, but West Virginia's offense didn't really threaten at all. You haven't seen many offensive highlights apart from Wilkins going here for the score. That was really it. West Virginia just didn't have a whole lot of threat on offense. So what you're going to see here against UCF is a test. Who can run the reins on offense, take the reins, take the control, get things going on the ground, get things going in the air, something we've not seen much of. And then who can manage the game? As Coach Rodriguez says here, if you got a bad play, who can minimize the damage, who can use that, grow up in a bit, and get into things as the quarterback going forward and establish themselves. When we hit the second half of the season here, West Virginia's got 5 quarterbacks, right? You've seen Nico Markiel in the first few games, that awesome Pitt game, and then, of course, the first game of the season, the FCS team win, and now you're here. Not a whole lot else. And Markiel's out for the season. Jalen Henderson is doubtful this week. We'll get into the injuries in just a moment here. But for quarterbacks specifically, you're looking at Khalil Wilkins, you're looking at Scotty Fox. Coach Rodriguez made it pretty clear in his press conference. Those are likely the 2 who are going to be taking the reins here. So who would you take at home? Let us know in the comments. Tell us who you think should be starting. For me personally, I think it's pretty simple. You've got to go with Wilkins. Wilkins wasn't the best against BYU. The pick was poor. Just a lot of missed plays overall. Throwing the ball in the air, a bit tough. And you see Scotty Fox come in at the end and make that great touchdown pass, and everyone thinks, okay, that's awesome play. You want more of that. But at the end of the day, that was against BYU's backups. The game was over. You're down 38-17. You're just looking to put some points on the board. That's really all it came down to. I think Wilkins should be the one starting this week. He proved that he had some real moxie, some real grit, if you will, on the road. To make your first start against BYU like that, pretty tough. So I think Rodriguez will start Wilkins this week, but as we've seen all throughout the season, how long of a leash that means, I don't know. To be fair, Wilkins really got the most play time of anyone as a quarterback against BYU. He played mostly the whole game. Scotty Fox coming in really wasn't a thing until the very end. So a bit of a unique spot here for West Virginia where Coach Rodriguez says they've got talent at quarterback, they've recruited good players, but no one's really shown up and established themselves here yet. And, to be fair, redshirt freshman for Wilkins, true freshman for Scotty Fox. It's a bit of a unique spot to be in. So who can really take advantage and put their imprint on this offense as we head to the second half of the season? Right now, you've got that refresh. You've got that bye week. Everyone's coming back. Still plenty of injuries, of course, but you sort of clear things out. You clear your mind after that 2-4 start. Who can take the lead as you get to these last 6 weeks? And really, this is West Virginia's best chance to set things up on the right foot for the rest of the season. 2-4 is bad. And really, West Virginia does not look good. Their losses are by an average of 26 points per game right now in conference. Not thrilling. But beyond just that, you've got plenty of opportunities to establish yourself here. That starts with UCF. UCF is 3-3. UCF's head coach, Scott Frost, also back in his first season for the Golden Knights. He's also returning there to the Knights. He, of course, won that disputed 2017 national championship, air quotes around that, as they went undefeated to the Knights. They weren't invited to any massive playoff game, of course, or any bowl game there. So for UCF, they're trying to run the clock back, get that nostalgia hit going again. Same thing as West Virginia is trying to do here with Rich Rodriguez. So it'll be an interesting test here of second-time coaches coming around to their starting gig, returning here, and we'll see who can take advantage more of that. I think this win would mean a lot more for West Virginia than it would for UCF. Going on the road, beating a Central Florida team, that'd be a big deal, of course, but really getting that first conference win, a big deal in Rich Rodriguez's second go-around, and proving that they can do something against what may be the worst team in the conference. Talent-wise, they're certainly down towards the lower end, sort of in that same spot as West Virginia, just first-time coach, a lot of transfer players coming in, so you're in a bit of a unique spot here. So we'll see if West Virginia can do that, and you've seen the Mountaineers roster for the first 6 games here. Clearly there's some holes. So you've got to see now who steps up to fill those gaps. Do you have players who step in to fill the gaps, or do you turn your attention to recruiting a whole new roster as you get into year 2? This is where coaches really start to make their decisions. Coming out of the bye weeks that you have, you start to really know, okay, who's showing up in the locker room, who's showing up on the practice field, who's showing up in the weight room, who's consistent, who's available, who's healthy, who's showing up as a real option heading into the back half of this season and then beyond. We, of course, see that as the quarterback position first and foremost between Wilkins and Fox and maybe even Max Brown a bit. But it really is the other positions here as well. You got to know what you have, and you have to know it now because your recruiting really comes into play here these last couple months of the season. Recruiting is massive in November and December. And, of course, the transfer portal. Now it's down to one portal here in the January timeframe. So you've got to get this done. You've got to get it done right, and you've got to know who you have right now. And Rich Rodriguez says this week, not just about recruiting, but also about winning. He's the one who doesn't have a lot of patience. I'm sure you at home, 2-4, the Pitt game's great, but all these losses are probably biting, and they hurt to watch, knowing that West Virginia could be doing more than just that. Coach Rodriguez says it's not just you. He's the one who feels that way as well. Some of the quotes he had this week, this was his best line he had on Tuesday. I wish I had more patience. I have no patience. That's never changed. It's like, why do you want to go fast? Because I have no patience. I want to call plays right now. You've seen West Virginia's offense. That makes sense. And watching Coach Rodriguez this year, it's clear he doesn't have a lot of patience. And that's not a bad thing. This is football. You're here to win right now. He clearly knows that. West Virginia clearly understands the assignment. It's a new era in the Big 12. You're looking to win right now. The longer you rebuild, the tougher this gets. So you've got to win now. He went on to say, you want to win right like yesterday. Hell, ain't nobody more impatient than I am, as he reiterates that. And then he did say, establishing beyond just the lack of patience he has, he said, we have the plan. Whatever we need to get fixed, trust me, we're in the process of fixing it. And then later on, I'm not giving up on this year's team at all. I like our guys. They still work. They've got a great attitude. I like the way we handled the bye week. They'll be ready to play on Saturday. So we really start to see that here right now. We all know Coach Rodriguez can coach. That's very obvious. Great coach here in college football, long time. What we've got to understand right now is that coaching going to work here with this group of players? How many of the players can you keep as you head into year 2 and beyond? Can this group of players do something here for West Virginia? And if you look at the schedule after this, not a lot of easy games out there. You got TCU coming to town next week. TCU's tough. You're going at Houston after that. Houston may not be the best team, but look pretty good so far. Your only team with a non-winning record, or at least a below 500 record on the schedule this season, is Colorado. That's in early November. And Colorado's look good. They just beat Iowa State last week. And West Virginia's beaten Pitt. And that's about it. So if you're going to make this happen, it's got to start now. And again, after that, you got Arizona State, you got Texas Tech. It's rough. So the Mountaineers, if they're going to salvage anything from this season, even if it's just the good vibes, if you will, it has to happen this week against UCF. You've got to see something. At the end of the day, none of us are sitting here thinking a bowl game's really, I think, something you'd bet on. It could happen, of course. But at the end of the day, it really is going to come down to what do you see from the team this week? Can you see some fight? Can you see some determination? Can you see a way to turn things around? And as we turn that attention to the game preview this week, let's get into what UCF is and the team West Virginia will be facing. UCF is a little bit similar to West Virginia. Under Scott Frost's offense, UCF runs the ball quite a bit. and they have about the same rushing stats as West Virginia, averaging over 200 yards a game on the ground, in that upper third, upper echelon of the country here. But really, West Virginia, obviously the Mountaineers go quick. UCF is a bit slower, a bit more deliberate. West Virginia's time of possession is 129th in the country per game. They're averaging 26 minutes possessing the ball. UCF is averaging 31 minutes per game holding the ball. So there's if you put those two together, the 26 minutes and the 31, you're missing 3 minutes there out of your 60. So that could go any direction here. And again, UCF's had more success running it this season than throwing. West Virginia done the same as well, but of course, Rich Rodriguez's lack of patience. You run that ball all the time, you run those plays all the time. So for West Virginia to win this game, obviously they're going to have to score, and UCF will likely look to hold the ball a little bit more, but of course still run the ball a bunch. And for UCF's offense, they're in a bit of a quarterback battle as well, partially due to injuries, partially due to play. So Marshall transfer Cam Fancher, he played against Cincinnati last week when the Knights lost 11-20 to UCF, or rather to Cincinnati. Fancher did okay, 28 of 49, 222 yards, over 100 yards on the ground, but he only led the team to 1 touchdown, obviously the 2011 loss, so it wasn't that great. Their other quarterback, Taven Jackson, their backup, has been all right, 80 of 124, under 1,000 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick, a lot of rushing yards as well. The way Coach Rodriguez and defensive coordinator Zach Alley characterize it is, it doesn't really matter who's playing for UCF, they're all talented. All of them can throw to some degree, but it's all about running the ball, getting the ball to the playmakers, get out of the way, let them do the work. So for UCF, you'll be kind of seeing a bit of a copycat of West Virginia, and of course with some better throwers over there, but similar in terms of the scheme and talent. UCF's got mobile quarterbacks. So West Virginia, that's where they've struggled the most this year, is against those mobile quarterbacks. So West Virginia's got to prove they can do this on defense and play one-on-one against everybody and not let the quarterback burn you when it gets to that point. Doesn't really matter who starts at quarterback for the Knights. All of them can play in terms of that mobile quarterback ability. So you're going to have to see, can West Virginia finally step up and corral any of them? They did it to some degree against Bear Bachmeier at BYU, but Bachmeier also annihilated them in the first half and looked like he was going to win the Heisman Trophy. Then in the second half, they did better. So you got to hope it's not that this week, and we'll see what they do against what's very likely the least talented quarterback room in the rest of the schedule here. UCF's quarterbacks are all right, and they still got talent, but compared to the rest of the quarterbacks on your team, on the schedule here, it's probably the least talented on there. So you've got a chance here. You got to take advantage of it. We'll see if they can do it. On the ground, though, that's where the Knights really thrive, similar to WVU. Miles Montgomery, he's the pound the rock back, 434 yards for him so far, and 117 yards catching for Montgomery. So he's got plenty of threat, be it out of the backfield or out of the backfield receiving, not just running the ball. Then their big play threat is Jaden Nixon. Nixon, the backup, he's got just under 300 yards rushing, and he's averaging over 11 yards a carry. Most of his yards come on 15 or more yard gains. So this guy, when he gets the ball, Jaden Nixon, it's going long. And when Miles Montgomery gets the ball, he's getting the ball everywhere, be it passing, running, whatever, and he's going to run you over. So for West Virginia, you've got to figure out, can you stop the rushing attack? Can you stop the dual threat quarterback? And then see what you can do from there. Obviously, the more the ball stays on the ground, the better for West Virginia. So we'll see if they can do it. That's really what to look out for here. UCF's not going to be cutting you up with major pass plays. They haven't done it at least this year. It's pretty much all been their slot receiver, their 2 running backs, and their mobile quarterbacks. And it's led to some success, but not a ton. So West Virginia coming in at 2-4, 2 wins and 4 losses. UCF is a bit similar to that, 3 wins, 3 losses. They beat Jacksonville State, Rich Rodriguez's old team, hopefully not heralding anything here for this weekend's matchup. So they beat them 17-10. Then they beat North Carolina A&T 68-7, FCS school. Then they beat North Carolina, which, that might be the worst Power 4 team in the year, pretty easily there. So then they lost 3 conference games. At Kansas State, lost by 14. Against Kansas, lost by 7. At Cincinnati, lost by 9. So closer losses than West Virginia, but still undefeated, or rather no wins, I should say, in the Big 12 conference play. So both teams here are looking for that first conference win. I think it matters more to West Virginia. I've said that already. I think this game really matters for them. They've got to prove they can do something here. And West Virginia, you're coming off these last few Neil Brown years. You got to see some hope. For the Knights, they've got a bit of a better spot they're coming into right now, or at least a bit of a better backdrop. Past couple years weren't the best, but they've got their longtime coach back, same as West Virginia. So, they've got 3 wins. West Virginia's got 2. Look at it that way. And so for the West Virginia here, they're undefeated all time against the Knights, 4-0. is the West Virginia. Last year, you might remember they beat the Knights here in Morgantown by 10. They beat them back in 2003 and beyond as well. So never lost to Central Florida. We'll see what they do in the bounce house, they call it, out in Orlando. Tough place to play. May not be as difficult as, say, BYU or something, but it's not an easy place to win either. So should be a bit of a tough one here on the road. And if you're looking to go, tickets are pretty cheap. You're looking at about $21 starting as your price to get there. So if you want to fly out to Orlando, you might be able to. Head out there, you get some cheap tickets. Obviously, you got to pay for the airfare, but hey, if you want to see the Mountaineers and hopefully get their third win. If they lose this one, obviously, the season feels like it's just going downhill from here. West Virginia would be 2-5 after UCF, potentially your weakest team left in the schedule, and not much hope coming out of this. But I think a win here changes a lot of the narrative. Get that first Big 12 win in October on the road. You start at 3-4. You have a new, young quarterback doing this. That could be a really big deal. So we'll see what they can do. But as we get to this game this week, it's not just about can West Virginia pull together and put the team together and do this. It is really about who's going to step up for the team, because there are a lot of starters injured here. Take a look at the injury list we've got. Plenty of players here, and this is just for this game. I mean, it's a bit rough. So Jaheim White, of course, out for the year. Jaden Bray out for the year, so two of your top weapons. Nico Markiel out for the year. Ashton Woods, the backup linebacker, he's out for the year. He's played in every game this season, done pretty well. So he's out for the year for the Mountaineers. Ty Edwards is doubtful, and Rich Rodriguez, he didn't explicitly say doubtful. The way he said it was, likely not going to play. Edwards was out in Alabama this week seeing a hip specialist. We really haven't seen him much since the Pitt game. Played a couple snaps at BYU, took a couple runs, and then was sort of out of things from there. So West Virginia's on to their third, fourth, fifth, and sixth string running backs. That's where things stand at the moment. Jalen Henderson and Max Brown could be two who'd step in at quarterback and help out with some of the younger guys. Brown from Charlotte, he's a junior. Henderson, the senior from Texas A&M. Henderson is doubtful for this game. Rodriguez made it sound like he's not going to be able to go this week. Brown is more on the probable side than the doubtful side. It's sort of in between there. We'll see if he gets any opportunities this week. But Rodriguez did say that Khalil Wilkins, and Scotty Fox are getting the majority of the snaps to prepare for this game. So I didn't take that as a sense that Brown was going to have many opportunities to play, even if he is healthy. If he does play, it might come later down in the season. But at this point, of course, you might just want to turn to your future quarterbacks and see where things go from there. Center Landon Livingston is probable to play in this one. Sounds like he'll be good to go. So, of course, we're still a couple days out. The injury report could change, but that's roughly what you're looking at right now. And as you see, a lot of skill players out, and you're just in a bit of a tough spot here. What can you put together? Coach Rodriguez mentioned this is a little less than he wanted coming out of that bye week. He was hoping to didn't quite get as many back as I wanted from that in regards to the bye week, he says, but he calls this a restart for the second half of the season. And that's really what we're looking at here with this injury report. A lot of these guys are out for the year. A lot of these guys, Edwards, Henderson, Brown, who knows? So at this point, it really comes down to who else is out there, who else can you get, who else can step up. This is the week to do it. You're off the bye week. You're mostly healthy for the other people, for the people who are going to step in here. You've got to prove who can do it. Mountaineer backups have to show they can be the ones. And so for West Virginia, we're going to see what they can do on offense. That, I think, is really the place to look first and foremost. The offense averaging 22 points per game this season, and in conference play, it's not really been close. You've got to get this to be a close game in order to feel good about where things stand for the Mountaineers going forward from here. It cannot just be a loss. It has to be a close one. You have to put together something to show that you're going to be in this game. I think the fear that many of us have is you go to UCF. If this is a loss, if this is a big loss, I mean, it's just all downhill from here. What kind of momentum do you have going into year two under Coach Rodriguez? You've got to show something. And again, tough schedule rest of the season. Like I said, this is probably not going to lead to a bowl game, even if you win. You're in a bit of a tough spot here with this schedule. But next year, the schedule is going to lighten up in Big 12 play. And with all the players you've got to recruit, you've got to show something positive going into that year two. Pitt wins great, a long time ago now. Football is all about what have you done for me lately. And since then, they've lost 3 straight in conference, and it's not really been that close. So any conference competition you can provide here for the Mountaineers, that's what you're looking for. And you've got to get some improvement out there to show the future kids, the future athletes who are going to come in here, hey, we're building something. We're building something great. Building something with Coach Rodriguez that's going to work for you as you get here. And that's really going to be the key here, because as we look forward, I don't know how many starters West Virginia has who are playing this week or played this season who are going to be continuing to start going forward in year two. More of those players might be on defense than offense, but even then, there's just been people all over the place. Backups coming in everywhere. Injuries, of course, played a big part of that, but performance as well just hasn't been there all that much. And I mean, right now is the time you need your stars to step up. Your Cam Vaughns, your receivers like that. Vaughn's had a pretty solid season so far, but he had that huge drop against BYU. If he catches that deep pass instead of gifting a turnover to the other team, West Virginia might have been a bit more in that game. And Vaughn, he's got an opportunity to prove here this week he can be that #1 receiver. He's been it throughout most of the season, just hasn't really amounted to much. So we're hoping to see more of that from him this week, as with those 2 weeks off, maybe West Virginia's quarterbacks have some time to get the throwing under their belts, get into the game here, throw the ball a bit more, rather than just run it all the way up into the fourth quarter, and then by the time you're down, you kind of go from there. So we'll see if Cam Vaughn can do that. But beyond just him, it's more players as well. It's guys like your Jamori Robinson. Robinson, unfairly, of course, had that tough start to the season with the NCAA, couldn't play until the past couple of weeks. He has just been really ineffective out there. So you need guys like him to step up. You need a Jamori Robinson to put more pressure on the edge. West Virginia had a lot of sacks early in the season and very few since then. So it's just about improvement everywhere. Because West Virginia's stats, what we've seen with the scores, it's just not really been that close. So you've got to turn it around and put that improvement out there on display, not just for the fans, of course, but really for the future going forward, for the players you're going to get into the roster from here. They have to see something. And I think with Rich Rodriguez, you can see that. He was, of course, incredibly upset at the BYU game and the Utah game and so on, but Rodriguez is a good coach. He knows how to harness the vibe here in Morgantown, that West Virginia energy. And I think you're looking for any opportunity to get that out there. And that's what you need here as you get to the end of this season. What can they do? And, as we look into the future here, Rich Rodriguez mentioned that this week. He talked a little bit about some of the numbers and where West Virginia stands going forward. Over the past week in the bye week, if you missed it, West Virginia made a big announcement where they're going to be at full revenue share for this year and for next year. That's the money that they're paying to their players for not just football, but all the sports they have. And then in addition to that, they're increasing the number of scholarships they have. It's about 12 scholarships going into the football program and then over 100 more going into their Olympic sports. That's a really big step, not just for those sports, but just in general, knowing that the university's on a solid financial backing like that you're going to have scholarships in football and beyond. That's a great place to be. And clearly their new president and their board of governors understands for West Virginia to compete, that means financially. And in his press conference on Tuesday, Coach Rodriguez mentioned that about how, everyone's going to be spending between $12 to $15 million a year on their football roster. West Virginia is a part of that, of course. They're in that tier now. But what he mentioned was the NIL. There's no cap on that. So if you think of like the NFL or the NBA, of course, there's a hard cap, right? NFL, it's roughly $250 million. NBA, it's something like 120 or so. That's the amount you have each year to pay your players. You can't go over that, or if you do, there are penalties and so on and so forth. In college, it's not that, right? You get about $20.5 million for your whole school to spend on its athletes. You apportion that however you want. For West Virginia, we don't know the exact amount. Rodriguez mentions it's between 12 to 15, and then the rest of that money goes to your basketball, your baseball, your soccer, and so on. So most schools are doing that same roughly split, right? But the NIL money, it's unlimited. You can spend whatever you want on there because that's come down to endorsements and player deals and things like that. And the school can help with that, but the school's not the one signing these players to these deals, It's your car companies, it's your workout deals, it's your whatever it may be on social media. That's where things really come into play. And Rodriguez mentioned, he says some schools spend $30 million on top of that annual revenue share the school will spend. Some spends $20 million, some spend 20, some maybe not that much. So for us to compete, we have to have a great revenue share. Our scholarship numbers have to be good, but then he says additional numbers have to be there for us to be competitive. And he says if we got $10 million over the cap, I think that would give us an opportunity to be competitive in your league. So for West Virginia, can they get $10 million in NIL money over that cap of $20.5 million that you have for the school? That seems to be the spot that Rodriguez mentions he wants West Virginia to be at. I think we don't know the NIL numbers, of course. Those are not published publicly, so we won't know that. And we'll have to see going forward. You'll be able to tell really by the talent that West Virginia has. They're never going to get the $15 million Texas Tech defensive line that the Raiders just bought this year. But for West Virginia, with the limited number of people in the state, the limited number of graduates they have who contribute and big money donors, it's just never going to be that, of course. It's about being smart with your money. But if they can get that extra $10 million a year, like Rodriguez says, that's going to be the key. Again, we'll see if that happens going forward. Who knows? But knowing that the school itself was on a solid financial backing to get that $20.5 million and then solicit for that other 10 for the players, great spot to be in, and quite frankly, far better of a spot than it looked over the past few years with some of the budgets we've seen at West Virginia and the programs being cut and so on and so forth. So this is a good step for the Mountaineers and a big step for that football team going forward. From here, as we get into the second half of the season, it's up to you, really. What do you think constitutes success for West Virginia? Let me know in the comments. Let us know on our email, sports@wdtv.com. Place a comment in our social media pages. We want to hear from you and know what is success for you in the back half of the season. For me, I think it's pretty simple. Can West Virginia win 2 games? Can they win 2 out of 6 and match what they did in the first half of the season? That doesn't sound great. You finish 4-8, you miss a bowl game. But at the end of the day, you beat an FCS school and you beat Pitt, who looks way better now, and bench their quarterback, and immediately after doing that, they go on the road and beat a top 25 team. So if you can win 2 games and match that first half, I think that would mean a lot, especially with those injuries you've seen here. Can UCF be one of those wins, and then can you get an upset against a TCU? Can you upset the Arizona State or Texas Tech by some miracle? Can you do anything like that? That, I think, is what I'd be hoping for, or even the Houston game. If West Virginia can get 4 wins on the season, I'd feel pretty good about that for Rich Rodriguez's year 1 team. We said coming into the year here on the 5 Sports Show, this team didn't have a lot of talent. It just didn't. And you can see that now on the field. It just doesn't. That doesn't mean they're terrible, but this is not a team primed to compete in the Big 12, and that's what you're looking for here. It's not there yet. That's okay. Can the team show something to put some momentum on for year 2? That's really all you need here in year 1. At this point, it's clear what the team is. It's clear where things are going. It's just not going to be the top of the Big 12. But West Virginia is such a proud place of this football program. Having lived here for the past few years, you don't meet many people who aren't fans of West Virginia's football program. And you just haven't had a whole lot to cheer for, right? Those 6-6 seasons, nobody's pining for that under Neil Brown. I mean, you're not. The Mayo Bowl year was fun and all, but it felt like a distraction from the typical 500 or mediocre seasons at best. This feels like, even though this is a lowering of the floor this year for West Virginia, I do think Rich Rodriguez has the ability to push that ceiling higher than Neil Brown ever did. The question is, can you get there? Because if you're going to get there, it's got to happen in recruiting, it has to happen financially, and you got to get some momentum out there. We've seen the finances. It looks like they might be there. Recruiting-wise, West Virginia's class right now looking pretty decent. You could use some more players, of course. Rodriguez mentions they want 35 high school players and then more in the portal. You'll probably need at least 50 for next year. So you're looking for something like that. So we'll see what happens for West Virginia. Plenty to build on from here. But if you're going to make that build up to the upper echelon of the Big 12, it's got to happen here. You've got to get some momentum. You've got to find the right players. And doing that really comes down to how well your coaches recruit. How much of this program can they sell to the team? You can sell that win over Pitt. You can sell the West Virginia, the Morgantown atmosphere. This is the #1 game in the state. You and I know it. But at the end of the day, you got to get some wins. You got to get some performances out there to prove to the recruits, hey, we're putting together something good here. At West Virginia, it's a talented place. You're always able to get pretty decent rosters here. Just haven't had that big one in a long time. Feels like those Dana Holgerson days, those early ones. It's just been a really long time since West Virginia has had those real difference makers to take it to the upper echelon. The Pat White days or beyond, anything like that. To get those kind of players, you got to have the money, you got to prove you can do it. And so we'll see what West Virginia can do from here. All those grand steps into the future, they start right now with a good performance against UCF. So we'll see if they can do it. West Virginia is not favored. The Knights are favored by 7.5 points going into that game, which is at 1 p.m. on TNT, True TV, and HBO Max this Saturday. Look for us after the game. We'll have a podcast out for a reaction on what happens for West Virginia. We'll see if they can win over the Knights. They're not favored, of course. Vegas thinks they're going to lose by about 7.5 points. Do you agree with that? Where are you looking for the Mountaineers to do in the second half of the season? Can they win over the Knights? Let us know in the comments, and we'll see you back here Saturday night on the 5 Sports Show.